Hi there, future educator, and welcome to this Praxis 5004 test prep lesson all about the social studies covering the information that you'll need to know regarding United States history, government, and citizenship in order to pass your upcoming exam. Without further ado, let's jump into this. To start, we'll take a look at the European exploration and colonization in the United States history and growth and expansion of the US. All right, so to start, European exploration between the 15th and 16th centuries, this was driven by a blend of curiosity, but also economic and ambition. So, economics and economic ambitions, as well as strategic interests for their home countries. And this is important because when you take your exam, you'll often receive a question about the motivations of a specific explorer. And the great part about this is that you don't necessarily need to know all about that specific explorer because their motivations are almost always economic and strategic. So look for an answer option, either that A, B, C, or D, that discusses the economic, the curiosity, and the strategic interests of the explorer that the question is all about. All right, let's keep moving on. Now, nations on the Atlantic seaboard of Europe, notably England, Spain, Portugal, and France, they embarked on the expeditions to discover new trade routes and territories. And these explorations then led to the discovery of new lands and the initiation of colonization once they landed. These efforts would later become, collectively, the United States of America. Now, here are some key points that you'll want to keep in mind when preparing for your Praxis 5004 exam. The collapse of the Mongol Empire and the control of the Mediterranean by the Ottoman Turks forced the European powers to find new trade routes to Asia. So, again, what I want you to do while you are actively listening and hopefully taking notes here is that what I say, I want you to reverse engineer that. So, and I want you to think, how could that become a question on test day? All of this information that I'm going to present is in a straightforward and logical way. But what I want you and I want you to encourage you to do is to reverse engineer it. So instead of what I just said about the collapse of the Mongol Empire and the Ottoman Turks kind of having control of the Mediterranean, and then therefore that forced the European powers to find new trade routes, I want you to think, okay, what if there was a question that started with the end in mind? For example, what made the Europeans find new trade routes to Asia? Well, then you'd go back to the beginning of what I just said, and that would be the collapse of the Mongol Empire and that the Ottoman Turks had control of the Mediterranean. Therefore, the Europeans could no longer use those traditional trade routes. They went a different way. Voila, then they accidentally discovered what would become known as the United States. Okay, so I'm going to say that one time, but actively participate while listening to this. And I hope you have your notebook out. It's going to help out so much. All right, let's keep it going. So now let's talk about some of the explorers, such as Christopher Columbus. We have John Cabot, and these two were pivotal in this time period as early voyage, their early explorations did a great job in finding new places. So they aimed to establish different trade routes with Asia, but again, led to encountering the Americas. Now, along with that, the arrival of Europeans had profound impacts on the Native American populations, such as the spread of disease, warfare, and then colonization of the Europeans. Now, European powers implemented various forms of governance, and throughout these territories, this ended up significantly altering the demographic and cultural landscapes for the native people in their native land. Now, different European nations established colonies along the eastern seaboard of what is now the United States. These colonies served as new outposts for European ambitions and were extremely important in the exploitation of local resources and the transatlantic trade, including what would become known as the slave trade. The colonization efforts laid the groundwork for the development and expansion of the United States. Over time, these colonies grew in number and size, driven by both immigration from Europe. And this expansion was further fueled by the pursuit of land, resources, and economic opportunities, leading to westward movement of the United States. Notice here, again, these really, whether land, resources, or the economics, these are all economic motivations. Again, when you receive a question on test day about the Europeans coming to the United States, US history, note that and look for answer options that give a hint or maybe even just explicitly state the economic motivations of these people, because that's at this time what a lot of this was about. Now, moving on, let's talk about the American Revolution and the founding of the nation, of our nation, the United States of America. So, the American Revolution, this happened between 1775 and 1783, and it marked a pivotal period in our history where the 13 colonies won their independence from Britain. This led to the establishment of the US, becoming independent. Now, the revolution arose from escalating tensions due to, and I'm going to pause here again. If on test day you receive a question that states something like, why or how did the escalating tensions from Britain, what were the impacts of that? I'm going to share that with you right now. So I'm going to start back at the top. And I want you to be thinking critically while I present this information. It will help you dramatically on test day. So one more time, the revolution arose from escalating tensions due to Britain's imposition of taxes and laws, which the colonists fiercely opposed. They thought of these as being unjust and oppressive, and this period is renowned for sparking a global influence on political ideas and revolutions. So one thing led to another. Next up, here are some of the key events leading to the revolution that you'll want to be aware of for your exam. Relations between Britain and its American colonies deteriorated with acts such as the Sugar Act, the Stamp Act, remember the Townshend Act as well, and which these levied taxes without colonial representation in Parliament. And the situation really escalated with what we know as the Boston Massacre, which happened in 1770. And this is when British soldiers killed American civilians during a confrontation in Boston. And we also have the Boston Tea Party that happened in 1773. This further inflamed tensions with colonists dumping taxed British tea right into the Boston Harbor as a protest against the taxation without representation. Again, key phrases and terms that you'll want to be aware of. Moving on to the Declaration of Independence, starting with the movement toward independence, such as those at Lexington and Concord. This happened in 1775, and this demonstrated the reserve of the colonists, leading to broader support for independence, really showing their power, their strength, and their belief in independence. Influential pamphlets like Thomas Paine's Common Sense argued that they needed complete separation from Britain. And then in June 1776, the Continental Congress appointed a committee which was led by Thomas Jefferson in order to draft what would become known as the Declaration of Independence. This document, which was adopted on July 4th, 1776, articulated the colony's reasons for seeking independence, emphasizing Enlightenment ideals such as the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Then, we also have a critical battle, or a series of them, critical battles and international support to know about for your test. So starting with important turning points such as key battles like the one in Saratoga in 1777 and the involvement of foreign powers like the French, who helped secure support, such as providing the US with much needed supplies, which helped them maintain their fight against the British. The war effectively ended with the American victory at Yorktown, which happened in 1781, leading to the Treaty of Paris in 1783, where Britain recognized America's independence. The American Revolution not only established the United States, but also inspired numerous other global independence movements.